Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Research Methodology Lecture Series held in collaboration with the Journal of Marginalized Communities and Social Justice. Today, we are honored to introduce our resource person, Mr. Madhura Fernando. He is the first editor of the JMCSJ and the director of Blue Ocean Insights Private Limited, a firm dedicated to strengthening research capacity and evidence-based decision making. What makes Mr. Madhuri Fernando's perspective truly unique is his interdisciplinary mission. He works at the fascinating intersection of modern technology like AI and ancient knowledge systems. His work seeks to bridge historical wisdom with contemporary sustainability and social development. As a researcher dedicated to highlighting marginalized voices and social equity, he is the perfect guide to help us navigate the complexities of research design. So, Mr. Madhura, we are eager to hear your insights. This virtual floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, Mr. Madhura.
Okay. And thank you very much, Diniti, for the introduction. Uh, and I'm really happy to address participants from different parts of the world. Um, Actually, this knowledge dissemination is something I'm interested in because when you find new things, new research areas, you always develop yourself, and you can, when you inject your knowledge into the society, you can make a positive impact towards the society. So always, as scholars, we have to develop our research knowledge and our perspectives so that we can make a big impact on the society. So uh, now I'm going to start the slide presentation. I hope you all can see the presentation.
Yeah, it's visible, Mr. Madhura.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. This session is about the research design. Actually, when it comes to research design, it is a very critical and important aspect in research methodology. That's because without a proper research design, you all can't conduct your research. You can't collect data. You can't set objectives, and you can't define your research problem. So first thing is you have to have a certain idea about research design. So I think from first slide to the last slide, I have prepared the presentation in order to, the first slides are explaining the fundamentals, right? And when you go to the last slides, it gets little bit advanced. So little by little, you can learn, you can develop your imagination, right? So I use some analogies in the first few slides so that you can easily understand the concepts. So you have a glance at the second slide. Now you can see this picture here. Now you can see on your left side that there is a construction site, and you can see the bricks and the construction equipment there. And then after that, you can see the foundation. And on your right side, you can see a house, right? Fully completed house. So, and there is a person who is climbing some steps. The steps are named as foundation, analysis, sampling, methods, and purpose. So this symbolizes your research journey. First thing is you have to set a foundation to start your research journey. To start a research, you have to lay a foundation. On that foundation, you can develop the next steps. So it's just like you are laying the foundation to build a house, right? So when you once you put the foundation, you have to analyze the you can analyze the data, because if you have the proper foundation, you are in a position to analyze the data, because you can collect the data, you have the tools, and you can identify what type of analysis you are going to employ in your research process, and you know what is the sampling method you are going to select, and methods, you everything you know, and you can come up with the research purpose. Once you finish all these phases, you can come up with the clear research purpose. Uh, Sometimes you may have a purpose in this, before putting the foundation, you may have a purpose, but without these steps, you can't make it a research purpose. Now, it's some you may have some kind of a purpose, but you have to follow these steps to come up to this research purpose. Otherwise, you can't find this advanced strategy. For you to find this advanced strategy, you have to develop this purpose. It's like you are putting the foundation, and then on the foundation you build your house, so using an advanced strategy, right? So understand this analogy so that you can easily understand what I am explaining here. We'll move on to the next slide. Yes, why research design is critical. So, as a researcher, you may have ideas. Ideas are based on your own understanding, or sometimes your opinions are ideas, or sometimes you hear different things from media like YouTube, through websites, newspapers, and through many sources. You get some news or knowledge or what. These ideas are just opinions. Sometimes when the opinions doesn't have scientific background. So to make it scientific, I mean, make your ideas, convert your ideas into scientific ideas, you need the research design, because on the grounds of research design, you can develop your ideas into a researchable topic, testable research problem. So once you find out what is your research problem, you know your problem. I mean, you need to ask the correct questions. Otherwise, if you ask the wrong question, which doesn't exist, then you get an answer which doesn't exist. So this problem has to exist in a certain context. If that problem exists in that context, then only you can develop a research idea. So research design helps you to develop that idea. Okay, then you can the research design can direct you towards a good publication. Okay, so this slide is about that. I mean, research design ensures credibility, clarity, and publication quality of your research. It transforms ideas into systematic investigation. Now, there is a certain method or a system to investigate ideas. Research design is the compass which directs you towards that systematic investigation. Okay, and then we move on to the next slide. Yeah, this explains research without design. Research without design is you are at a conceptual risk. Create problem awareness. Like you have idea, right? It doesn't matter. We have ideas, right? We have so many ideas, but they are not research ideas. You get those ideas through some unreliable sources like newspapers, media, YouTube. Different sources are there, but these sources are not scientific sources. No basis in those sources. So you are in a confusion, right? You don't know what is your problem. You have different ideas in your mind, but you can't just organize your ideas, and you can't find what is the research problem. You are not clear about the research problem. So when you employ a research design in your process, you can convert this idea or convert this confusion into a well-defined research problem, right? So it directs you towards the scientific method. Okay, and we'll move on to the next slide. Now this is another type of picture which demonstrates your research journey, right? Now here you can see some arrows, questions, sampling, analysis. Now you have done your homework when you come here, right? Because the arrows are pointing towards the back side, right? Because you have done that already. You have found out what are the questions. You have found out your sampling method. You have found out your analysis method. Now you are continuing your research process, employing the correct method. So you can see the destination. You can see this flag on the top of the mountain. That is your destination, right? Then when you know the roadmap, you can easily go up to your destination. So that is the critical uh, utility of this research design. Because if you have the research design, you will come to know your research objectives. So you can fulfill your objectives. You are in the correct research problem. You have defined your research problem. Then you know where to go, right? You pass these landmarks here. You know the landmarks. You know the map. You can look at the map and you can walk according to the map. In the map, you have all the landmarks, and depending on your landmarks, you can adapt to the situation because you premeditate that. You know that before meeting the landmark. So research design acts as a blueprint. What do you mean by a blueprint? Actually, a blueprint is a plan. The plan. Actually, the research design provides you with the logic, research logic. That logic travels from first phase to last phase of your research. Throughout your research, this research design carries the logic, research logic. Okay. So first thing is understanding the research problem and defining the research problem. Okay. Yeah. Now we can move on to the sixth slide. Yeah. You can see this picture here, it describes the core elements of research design, right? Core elements. Now you can read these points here. A good research design starts with understanding problem. You have to find the research design which is appropriate to the exploring process. And then design which is matching with the exploring process. You have to select a design corresponding to the exploring process. And then you can define using that design, you can define what is your research problem, right? That is your first element. Hmm? And the second element is objectives. As I said in the earlier slide, your objectives gives your destination. See here in this slide. So not so. This slide, you can see the destination. You can see the flag there. So you, the objectives are the things that show your destination. See this the target here. You see your destination using the objectives, research objectives. And research objectives are aligned, always aligned with your research questions, right? Because you have asked the correct questions. Because of that, you have the correct objectives. You know the destination, right? That's what you have to understand by this element, right? The third element is the variables. Now you have found out your objectives and research questions and research problems. Now you have built up your fundamentals. You have built up your conceptual framework. Now in that conceptual framework, you have variables, different variables, because you have the necessary evidence to support your variables. Your variables are constructed using some dimensions, right? Some dimensions. Say your dimensions will create the variables. Now there are so many variables that you have identified when you are in this stage. You can identify the interactions between these variables, right? You have scientific tools. You have SPSS, Smart PLS. There are so many statistical tools, mathematical tools for you to use, because you have defined your problem and then you have quantified your problem through the objectives, and that variables you can now measure. You have a certain scale. Using that scale, you can measure those variables and then you can find the interactions or the relationship between these variables. There are mediator variables, moderator variables, control variables, independent variables, and dependent variables. There are so many types of variables. So these variables helps you to develop your conceptual framework, right? With this conceptual framework, you can find what is the data strategy you are going to apply, right? You can apply quantitative data strategy or qualitative data strategy or mixed method, whatever the method matching your research that you have to apply. Okay. Now, this strong data strategy converts theory into measurable reality. Sometimes, in the first place, when you are defining your problem, you have a certain theoretical basis. Say you have literature or you have a certain model. So, based on that model, you can develop your research problem and objectives and variables. So that becomes a theoretical framework, not a conceptual framework, because already you have a theory. So using that theory, I mean, say that theory is invented in another part of the world. Say it is invented in India. Now you are taking that theory to Sri Lankan context. Now you just check whether that theory applies in the Sri Lankan context. Now this theory is well defined. So based on that theory, you you develop variables, objectives, research questions, and your data strategy is dependent on that theory, because when there is an established theory, say it's a quantitative theory, then your analysis should be a quantitative analysis, because that theory is formed based on a quantitative atmosphere, or quantitative approach is used in when establishing that theory. So in that case, your data strategy has to be a quantitative strategy. You get what I mean? Okay. And actually, a strong data strategy converts theory into measurable reality. Now, in Sri Lanka, you can apply that conceptual framework, and based on that conceptual framework, you can create a questionnaire. You can develop questions corresponding to each dimension of those variables. Now, or each of these variables have different dimensions to measure the variable, right? Based on these dimensions, you can create questions. Each dimension carries a question. So you enter all the questions in your questionnaire, and then you can distribute that questionnaire among your sample, and then they will give you the answers. Say you have included the Likert scale, then using that Likert scale, they just check the boxes and give you the answers. Then you can get the answers, and you can measure these variables. So you can make these social realities measurable variables using these questionnaires. You can take these social realities into numbers. You can express them in numerical form, in the number form. So it makes you understand the problem in a mathematical manner, right? So that is the most juicy point of employing a quantitative model. You can just convert these social constructs into mathematical formulas, regression models, or any type of model, mathematical models. So that is the beauty behind this, quantitative analysis, right? Okay. Then we'll move on to the seventh slide. Yeah. Now I'm going to put forward the certain example, just to provoke your imaginations, right? So when you see this, you can understand. The title goes as the employee psychological response to AI adoption. Now you can see the employee here, right? He's keeping his hand like this and wondering about something, right? He's in upset mood, I think. So he's thinking about AI adoption, and I think he's not optimistic. He's pessimistic, and you can see this little face, smiling face. That's another employee. That employee is optimistic about AI adoption, right? He's happy about AI adoption. Now, some employees are angry. See this face, the angry face, right? Some they are like they have a complicated type of mindset. Some employees. So there are different types of employees. They have different types of psychological mindsets. So this picture demonstrates that those mindsets, all those mindsets. Now this is the AI. It is coming towards these employees, right? Now there are negative emotions as well as positive emotions. Now fear of job loss, uncertainty, uh, uncertainty, and skill inadequacy. Now some employees they don't have skills, so they like when AI is adopted, they they are anxious. They are anxious about the situation. Uh, they will develop some kind of insecurity. So and the positive responses include innovation mindset. There are some employees who are innovative. They know how to utilize the AI tools in their day-to-day activities or in their professional activities. They know how to use, right? So they are very happy. They are positive about these things, right? and they can develop, or they can enhance the productivity expectations, and they can enhance their career growth. So the psychological responses influences work behavior, motivation, and organizational adaptation. Now you can understand, you can adopt AI, doesn't matter, but depending on the employee's mindset, you have the consequences, right? Say the employee is having a negative mindset, then the work behavior changes depending on his mindset, and his motivation gets lower, and the organizational adaptation is also, it also depends on his mindset, the employee mindsets, right? If the employees are positive, then nothing wrong with that. Motivation enhances, increases. Okay. Yeah, and the last point is that technology adoption is not only a technical change, it is a psychological transformation. So you can adopt different types of technologies, but without the mindset, positive mindset, you can't implement that. You can't get that into your practice, because if you are reluctant to use the AI tools, you're not going to capitalize that in your professional life. So always you have to keep in mind that you have to find what are the psychological mindsets and the nature of the mindsets of employees, and what are the causes why these the mindsets are formed. All those things you have to study. So for that you need research, right? So you need to define a certain design, research design, to study these different nuances, right? Okay, then we will move on to the 8th slide. He's still there. He's upset with AI. See this? Understanding research purpose. Now, this slide is for your concept clarity, right? Concept clarity, right? Understanding the concepts. Now, I have given 4 points here. Now, just have a glance at these points: exploration, description, explanation, and evaluation. Now, these are different, four different functions that you conduct in your research. You make use of these functions in your research, right? Exploration. Now, you want to explore something, right? You want to say understanding initial employee fears, expectations, and uncertainty about AI adoption. Now, from the face of it, you can see the employees are reluctant to use AI. Then you can just realize that there is a certain type of insecurity in their mind, certain type of negative feeling in their mind. So from the face of it, you can see it, but you haven't explored it. You haven't found out the nature of it. So in that case, you have to explore that, right? Understanding initial employee fears. That is your first function, right? And the second function is the description. Now, say you have found out, and you know the nature. There are some employees who are positive, there are other employees who are negative, right? Some are neutral. So there are three types of employees. So now you know that, and then you define some variables depending on their attitudes, their personality traits, and their perceptions. You define different types of variables, right? So after defining different types of variables, you can measure those variables, right? You can just ask questions, you can distribute questionnaires and get their feedback, and depending on that feedback, you can just uh, give me 1 second. Can you see this slide presentation clearly? Hello? Can you see this presentation clearly?
Yeah, it's clear, Mr. Market.
You can see, right?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. If there's any issue, please raise that, right? Because I'm continuing my lecture. If there's an issue, you will have to tell me that it's not visible or
Yeah,
something.
it's
You
okay.
you
Yeah,
raise
sure.
your question, right? Okay. Yes. And you have to measure the variables. Using the variables, you can measure the level of fear, the level of expectation, the level of uncertainty. You know that there is uncertainty in the first stage, but in the second stage you measure what is the level of that uncertainty. That is the function you call as description. And then the third function is the explanation, right? Now with all these insights and all these details which you have found in these two functions, exploration and description, you can come up with a good scientific explanation. Now it is analyzing how AI awareness, skills, and organizational support influence these reactions. Now you can define other variables, and then you can have a conceptual framework, and using that conceptual framework, you can find the relationship. You can quantify the relationship. So that is explanation. That is another function in your research. Finally, now you can come up with a certain kind of theoretical model after finishing this phase, the explanation phase, and then that model can be used as a assessing model. You can utilize that model in different contexts, different geographical areas, or different organizations, or whatever, and then you can assess the employee expectations and organizational behavior, and then you can compare these two situations, right? Using the same model, you can compare. So that is evaluation. Within a given period of time, you can just measure what happens to the expectation, right? That is evaluation. Okay. Yeah. Now I hope you can understand this. Then the next slide. Uh, this is the um, research process, and this is the workflow actually, right? Workflow from research intention to research strategy flow. Now, this research intention is made out of your research design, your thinking. As a researcher, you think in a scientific way. So that creates your research intention. So this is the first phase, and you know how to explore because you know that you know what you don't know. Right? You know what you don't know. Your inability or your you know what is to unveil, right? You know what is your problem. So that is the stage that you have to achieve using this exploration. Identify issues or topics, curiosity driven inquiry, generate research questions. Now you can identify issues or topics. So you can identify topics depending on the your findings, your explorations, and sometimes your curiosity. Because of your curiosity, you inquire about the things. Then, due to the curiosity, you come up with some ideas and details and insights. Then you come up with the topic, and then through that you can generate research questions, right? And then comes the description, then the explanation, evaluation. Now, even in the last slide, we have been explaining the same thing, but here this is actually for your concept clarity, and this is the strategic flow of your uh, one by one you are transiting, you are moving, you are shifting from exploration to description, shifting from description to explanation, shifting from explanation to evaluation. So likewise, you are walking on your research journey. Earlier slide explained what the research purpose mean, conceptual understanding. This slide explains how these purposes flow sequentially to design a research real study. Okay, now it's a journey. You develop the levels of awareness. First level is exploration. Now, when you improve your awareness further, you come to this description level, and further awareness will move you to explore explanation phase, and further awareness makes you move you towards evaluation phase. That is how this happens. Okay. Now, when you talk about research design, you have a type of research design called exploratory design. Right now, when in later in last few slides, I'm going to explain it in an organized manner. In initial side, you just get an idea, right? Just get an insight about these types of designs, because the designs are the plans you use to collect the data, and sometimes uh, to find what is the method you are going to employ, you use these designs, right? This is the exploratory design insight. uh, Autonomy, surveillance, job loss, complexity. Now, these are the different types of negative feelings you may have, right? Different types of negative feelings. Autonomy fear. What do you mean by autonomy fear? Employees may feel AI reduces human decision power. Now, say there is an employee working in a government organization for 30 years. He has been using conventional type of uh, methods, conventional type of tools to conduct his work. And after 30 years, the government is going to adopt a new technology to that particular government organization. Now, what happens? Now he feels that he loses his power. He loses his decision making power, because now after a certain date in future, the AI is going to take over decision making. So I'm not going to make decisions anymore. So that's the feeling, that's the impression he gets. So that is the autonomy fear. And the surveillance anxiety, right? Surveillance anxiety. Digital monitoring creates psychological discomfort. When somebody is monitoring you, you feel you are being judged. Then you are like little uncomfortable. So you are suffering from surveillance anxiety. So that is another kind of feeling. Third type of feeling is job loss uncertainty. You feel that you are going to lose your job because AI is taking over your job, your action. So you may lose your job. So you have that uncertainty, the sense of uncertainty. Workers imagine redundancy and future skill gaps. Okay, and technology complexity stress. Sometimes people think when you deal with technology, it is very complex. Some people have that mindset. So they fear the developments. They fear the technology. So that is the stress which derives from technological complexity, right? So finally, exploratory design helps transform confusion into clear research direction. Now, when you explore, you can go to this place and you can meet these employees, and you can distribute questionnaires, or you can have some interviews, in-depth interviews. You can ask open-ended questions, and you can arrange some focus group discussions. And through these methods, you can gain You can peep into their minds, right? You can look for their fears, the nature of their anxiety, their stress level, and they will explain their experience so you can get an idea. So you explore the real problem. That is the logic behind this exploratory design, right? Exploratory design always helps you to transform confusion into clear research direction. Now you know what are the problems, what are the fears, and what are the causes of these fears. Everything you get to know once you do your initial studies, background studies, you will come to know what are the problems, right? That is exploratory design insight. When it comes to descriptive design insight, now you have already found the levels of feeling, the types of feelings and the nature of feelings and their causes and everything. So now you have a certain kind of a base for you to measure these feelings. Now you can check the prevalence measurements. What do you mean by prevalence? Descriptive research helps us quantify how widespread a phenomenon is. Now, using descriptive research, you can uh, define some questions, you can define some variables, and based on those variables, you can have some indicators. For each variable, you can have few indicators. Now, those indicators derives your research questions, the questions in the questionnaire, right? Not the research questions, questions in, questions in the questionnaire. Now, you can distribute that questionnaire. Say in Colombo district, you need to find the organizational absenteeism, right? Then you choose some indicators, the indicators of absenteeism, and then based on those indicators, you develop questions, and then you develop a questionnaire. You distribute that questionnaire and get your Likert scales. Through Likert scales, you measure. Now you know up to which level these indicators occur. The fear and the stress level, up to which level this occurs. Now you can compare the levels. You can take a set of questionnaires into organization A, and you can measure what is the level of absenteeism in the organization A, and you go to the second organization, which is organization B, and measure that absenteeism, level of absenteeism, and these two you can compare. What is the highest number, higher number? You can compare, and you can find how common this absenteeism occurs, or this variable occurs. How common? That is the prevalence, right? Prevalence measurement. Descriptive research helps us quantify how widespread a phenomenon is. Right? That's it. And uh, population pattern identification. It identifies how many employee experience AI-related worry or acceptance. Um, yeah, how many employees? You can get a numerical value. How many employees experience this AI-related worry? You can get that value. Now you can, with that value, with that numerical value, you can statistically represent that. Your findings will be statistically evaluated, right? You can have percentages, averages, frequency tables, and charts and descriptive statistics. So you can have a numerical value. Right? Using this numerical value, you can analyze your data. Descriptive analysis, right? For this is a practical example. 62% of employees report moderate to high fear of job automation. Now you can get that easily using a questionnaire, right? So this comes under descriptive design insight. Hmm? Yeah. Then comes the next one: explanatory research, testing cause and effect. Now comes to the next level, right? Now you have developed the descriptive level. Now you are going to upgrade it to the explanatory level, not exploratory. These are two different words, right? Uh, Exploratory is one word, explanatory is another word. Explain. Explanatory means you explain. You test the cause and effect, right? Cause and effect. How you find the cause and effect? You have your experimental group and a control group. Why you keep a control group there? Because say now you want to uh, test whether the job insecurity level reduces due to AI training. Now you are going to offer a certain kind of AI training to a certain organization, and you want to check whether that reduces its uh, job insecurity, right? So in that case, you have to select two groups. This is the control group without training, and this is the experiment group with training. And in this control group, you are controlling all the variables, like say age, environmental aspects, organizational culture. Everything is the same as this experimental group. Because what happens if you don't control it? If you don't control it, you can't exactly say the reduction of this job insecurity is caused by this AI training. Now, in this case, when you offer AI training, say suppose that job insecurity reduces. Now, job insecurity reduces in that case, but you can't exactly say it is reducing only due to AI training, because there are some other hidden variables: age factors, gender factors, environmental factors. So they make impact on the AI training. Say you have in this group you have young crowd. No, sorry, old crowd, and here you have young crowd. Now this young crowd may have a flair on AI. So this AI training is reducing the job insecurity because there are young people, not because now it's not isolated. This cause and effect is not isolated. For you to isolate that, you have to keep these age, environmental factors, organization culture, everything constant. Then only you can conclude that this is a cause and effect, right? That is the idea behind this explanatory research test, right? Cause and effect relationship is isolated using a control, right? So I think you can understand that. Yeah, this design goes beyond descriptive. It answers what caused the reduction. Now, here there is an example. Experiment group receives AI training while control group does not. Okay. Controlled comparison. Participants are systematically divided into experiment versus control groups. I think you can understand all these things. I think I have explained it clearly. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to put forward those to the chat platform. And this is the next slide. Choice of data collection strategy shapes validity and depth. You can see a triangle here, right? Now, when you are conducting a research, you have to balance the breadth and the depth. Now, I'll explain what is breadth and depth. Breadth means, now in the previous slide, I explained about this prevalence measurement, prevalence, how common this occurs, how common this fear occurs. So how far this is spread, right? That is the amount. I mean the limitations, right? Limitations. These are spread over this area. That is the That is the breadth, right? So uh, breadth can be found using survey, because in the survey you have defined your variables, you have questions corresponding to your variables, and you have a clear theoretical framework. And so because of that you can easily get details, you can get quantitative numerical values. So with that easily you can gain access to some information. So you can improve the breadth using survey method. And then with that information you have to conduct an experiment to check whether there is cause and effect. You have to isolate the cause and effect. As I explained in the previous slide, you have to uh, see here like this. You have to explain your cause and effect. You have to isolate your cause and effect so that you know for sure that there is a cause and effect, right? Now, this breadth helps you to conduct an experiment, and with that experiment you get some insights, and with those insights you go back to the organization or that certain place. Say you select now in this breadth level, you have given your questionnaire to 200 300 employees to decide what is the conceptual model, and to decide the cause and effect. You have used 200 to 300 respondents, and you want to find out more details. You want to specifically find more details about the feelings, about the perceptions, about the experience. So you select a little group of people to have in-depth interviews, focus group discussions. So you have focus group discussions, in-depth interviews, and you can purify your findings. You can find some small nuance details using these interviews, and that improves the depth of your research, right? So from one side you are improving the breadth, from the other side you are improving the depth, and this depends on your constraints, your time constraints, your cost constraints, and some practical constraints are there. Depending on those, you have to decide what is the breadth level of breadth you can achieve, what is the level of depth you can achieve, and you can balance these two. When you balance these two, you get the causal validity, right? Causal validity, because your uh, qualitative insights validates your quantitative insights. Your quantitative insights validates your qualitative insights, and you are experimenting continuously. So it's a chain effect, right? So you can continue this chain effect up to your limitations. When that goes beyond your limitation, you have to stop that. In a research, have you seen that researchers have written, these are my limitations, these are my constraints. So they are writing that because they are going along these arrows, but they have to stop at a certain point of time. At that time they know these are my limitations, and I mentioned that limitations, I accept these limitations. So they just get some idea and leave the rest for the future researchers. So that is the idea behind this causal validity. Okay. Surveys support generalization by measuring prevalence across large employee groups. It is surveys actually generalize your idea. Interviews provide psychological depth by exploring feelings, meanings, and experiences of AI adoption. Experiments establish cause and effect by testing whether facts like AI training reduce job insecurity, and strong research design strategically balances breadth of evidence, conceptual insight, and internal validity. Experiments do not just observe change, they test whether a specific intervention is the reason for that change, right? Experiments do not just observe the change. Observing the change is not enough. You have to find the reason behind the change and the specific intervention. You have to decide why this change occurs. What is the reason behind this change? What are the interventions that are occurring in this organization, right? All these things you have to find in detail. Then your research will provide valuable insights to the society or to a certain organization, right? Then comes quantitative research design. Mm. Quantitative research design. Now, let's go into more detail. Structured measurement using surveys, scales, and statistical testing. Now, now you have now employees have different perceptions. Now you use some numerical scales, Likert scale questions. Through that, you measure the perceptions, and then you get statistical. You draw statistical conclusions, and uh, the structure tools ensure measurement consistency, numerical objective comparison, statistical analysis support generalization, quantitative design research precision, quantitative design strengthen research precision. Now research precision. Now always, sometimes when you apply regression, you sometimes you find the R squared value. You find the variability. What is the variability explained by this model? You have to find that using R squared. And model fit, you are going to find the model fit. You validate, you get the convergent validity, divergent validity. I don't go into more detail. I just mentioned those things. I think in the later lecture sessions, next resource persons will explain those things. Now, what I have to mention is quantitative research design is dealing with surveys, statistical models, regression analysis, the smart PLS, and structured equation model. These are the elements of quantitative research design. That is what I want to explain. Uh, and when it comes to qualitative, it's always about interviews and lived experience, and it captures meanings, perceptions of the employees, or of the people, of the respondents. It doesn't care about the quantitative side of it. It care about the meanings, and it interprets or describes. It uses text or language to explain the meanings, explain the feelings, right? That is the qualitative research design. Because in some cases you can't measure some emotions using quantitative techniques. Say consciousness. Consciousness is a phenomenon which cannot be explained by a quantitative or mathematical model. Consciousness is a very complex phenomenon. So you can't explain consciousness only using quantitative techniques. You have to talk to people. You have to arrange some in-depth interviews, focus group discussions. So many things you have to go through. Then only you will be able to get at least a small, at least a very at least scientific definition for consciousness. You have to find a certain interpretivist approach to address what is consciousness. So there are such phenomena in the society that you cannot use quantitative research design to explain. So for those, you need to employ qualitative research design, right? Then mixed method integration. Now you can just combine these two, the numerical strength and the contextual depth. When you combine these two, you can validate each method, right? Mutual validation. So numbers explain the patterns and stories explain the meanings. Now you can use the patterns explained by the numbers to explain the stories, and you can see how they are how the meanings are aligning with the numbers. You can see that in the mixed method, right? Um, yeah, this example is given here. The survey shows 65% of employees fear AI. Interviews explain reasons behind this fear. Now, you using a survey, you can find 65% of employees fear AI, and using interviews, you can explain the reasons behind this fear, right? So you have a overall holistic idea about the context, about the organization, right? Yeah, research design determines how relationships are revealed. Uh, Quantitative research defines test statistical significance between variables. You can use statistical methods to define or find the relationships, whether the relationships are significant. You can use statistical models to validate the relationships. And qualitative research, you can use it explores patterns and themes themes in experiences, uh, qualitative patterns, the perceptions, emotions, lived experience, themes. You when you do a thematic analysis, you can find some common themes in different organizations, and these are qualitative insights, right? So research design determines how relationships are revealed. Relationships are you have two lenses. These are two lenses: quantitative lens and the qualitative lens. When you use each lens, you get a different view, different perspective. Okay. Yes. This is the cross-sectional design. You at a certain point of time, you can uh, you can have a look at in a certain organization. You can focus a certain view. Say, at a certain point of time, you want to check a certain the behavior, employee behavior of a certain company or certain organization, and then you just design your variables and your conceptual model, and you just distribute questionnaires and get insights, and then you find out how they behave, or their level of motivation, or their level of absenteeism, whatever it is. You can just get a snapshot of that particular point of time, right? Of that particular point of time. This is a real time capture. You capture it at this moment, right? A single moment. A focus view provides a clear picture of people, processes, performances, and culture at this moment. Or you can get an idea about the organizational culture, organizational behavior, and activities, and uh, absenteeism, employee turnover. You can get uh, values at this moment. That is the cross-sectional design. You only take a certain point of time, right? They only take certain point of time. It is only a snapshot. But snapshot doesn't show the future. It shows only this moment. It doesn't show the future, but it reveals the present clearly. So you can shape the next moment. Now, when you know this moment, how things are happening, you can shape the next moment. You can find what are the next initiatives. You can anticipate what are the initiatives you have to take. That is the use of cross-sectional design. But you can't evaluate uh, along the timeline, right? Now, as a solution for now, in this model, in this design, you can't evaluate that over a period of time. You get only this point of time. Now, when you go to longitudinal design, you can evaluate in different points of time. Now, this example is a behavioral change across technological transitions. Now, you have a certain model which can be used to measure the behavior, right? Behavior. You measure the behavior using a certain model. Now what you do is you just using that model, you measure the behavior in the traditional work, traditional setting, conventional setting. And then after applying a certain type of automation in the future point of time, you use or utilize the same model to measure the behaviors. And in another point of time, after AI adoption, you use the same model to measure the impact for the behavior, AI adoption, impact of AI adoption, and then the digital confidence. Now, there are different stages around the timeline. So you use the same conceptual framework to measure these behavioral changes. Now you can compare because you are using the same conditions now. So same conceptual framework. So you can compare each each value, and then you can get a direction. What is happening, and all the behavior. You can just predict, right? What happens to the employees? What has happened to the employees, and how we can adjust those things. All those things you can get a idea when you follow this longitudinal design, unlike in cross-sectional design, right? Yeah. Uh, this is the experimental design. Experimental design is testing intervention impact. Example, AI skill training. Now, before training, the AI confidence is low, job fear is high. After training, improved AI skills and higher confidence. Experimental design tests whether training intervention causes measurable behavioral improvements. Right now, you need to have a control variable also in this case. If you have the control variables, you can change the behaviors, change the impact which has been applied on the AI confidence and job fear, right? You can experiment. Before training, you can measure the level of confidence, and after training, you can measure the level of confidence, and you can measure the impact of the intervention, right? So this is the experimental design. This happens actually not in along the timeline. This happens in the event of of training, right? And time dimension, time dimension importance. Now, have a glance. Just read this. Technology impact evolves. Design must capture dynamics. Um, Technology is not static. Innovation continuously reshapes skills and systems. Effective design captures trends and transitions, not just snapshots. Adaptive research aligns with evolving technological realities. Design must anticipate future challenges and opportunities. Flexible and resilience drive sustainable development. Now, these are very important, right? Now, when the technology is always changing, hmm, when the community or when the people innovate new things, you have to always adapt to situations, because when you go along the timeline, there are so many changes which occur. So you have to adjust yourself according to these changes. Technologies are changing over and over again. So it reshapes the skills and the types of skills required, and it always changes these skill requirements and your cognitive abilities. The required cognitive abilities are also changing. when the technologies are changing. Right? So you have to be agile. You have to adapt yourself to the situation, to the technologies. So you have to always keep in mind that you always have to have a research mind. If you have a research eye, you can easily capture these technological changes which take place in the world. Sometimes, say, there is a certain technological advancement in uh, software development. Now, you can see some features. You can see the front end of the, you say front end of that feature. Front end is very user friendly. Now you take that mobile phone or whatever, and you think you see that this front end is very user friendly. So I have to check what is the back end. Right? You get it and you take it and you just reverse engineer that, and you go back to the back end and you change the, you find the machine language and stuff like that. You try to re-engineer, reverse engineer, right? Then that ability comes into you if you have a research mind, and you have to integrate different disciplines, like social disciplines, the disciplines which study about the society. Those should be integrated by technological disciplines. So if you try to combine or integrate these disciplines, your agility will be enhanced. You can adapt to situations. You can adapt easily, right? Because you know how to what is the research design that you are going to apply for this particular problem. This is a technological problem, and what is the research design I am going to apply in that, whether it is longitudinal, cross-sectional, qualitative, quantitative, or what you are going to apply. So, knowing, understanding these research designs, the types of research designs is very important because of that. You you will understand how you are going to conduct multidisciplinary studies, interdisciplinary studies, right? So you become an agile person. You are adaptable to any situation. So that is a very important aspect of research design, right? And if your design is effective, you can capture the trends, you can get the snapshots, and then you can extrapolate, interpolate, you can predict, you can develop predictive models, right? And you can identify the transitions, technological transitions, the nuances of the transitions. Everything you can capture if your if design is effective, right? And you become a adaptive researcher. Adaptive research aligns with evolving technological realities. Technological realities are always evolving, and then human psychologies are always evolving depending on the technological realities. So, from one side, you are finding the social impact, from the other side, you are finding the technological impact. Then you can combine these two disciplines, huh? Then you can find the interplay of technological variables and social variables. Okay, and design must anticipate future challenges and opportunities. Now, with different designs, you can, depending on your context, depending on your scope, depending on your purpose, you can decide what is the design you are going to employ, and that design helps you to handle that particular research problem, right? There are different research problems, technological research problems, social problems. So depending on your problem, you have to decide what is the research design you are going to employ. And then using that knowledge, using that research design knowledge, you can anticipate your future challenges. If your technology changes in this way, what happens to the social aspects, what happens to the people's minds. And if the people's minds change this way, what happens to the technology? So the interplay you can find easily, because you know the proper appropriate research design you have to employ in each case. You know that you have a eagle eye. You are very critical about your environment. So you can measure. Therefore, you can measure everything, right? You have all the lenses. You use the appropriate lens to find what is the problem. Your power, the power of the lens is different. You have microscopes. You have just the lens, the hand lens, and you have every type of lens. You have the camera. So there are different utilities. You use everything to capture what is around you. So that is the very important utility of research design. The most important utility of research design. So you become a very flexible and resilient researcher. So you are a sustainable researcher. You can sustain. Your knowledge can sustain. You can mobilize your knowledge sustainably. You can disseminate your knowledge sustainably, right? So that is the uh, essence of the research design. Okay. Then we have another 8 slides. I have to rush a little. I have about another 10 minutes. Uh, research research set in consideration purpose, function, and method-based research design. Now you can classify the research design, types of research design. This is very easy. Yeah? This is not very complex. Now you just have a glance at it. Core research design, purpose versus method. Now, when it comes to purpose, the purpose derived because you ask a question, why you are doing this research. When you ask that question, you get the purpose. So purpose based research designs are given here: exploratory design, explanatory design. Now in the exploratory design, research design, you want to explore new thing. Your problem is unclear. In that case, you want to explore that. So that is purpose based research design. And in the second case, you want to explain something clearly. You want to test relationships, right? You want to test cause and effect. That is your purpose is explain. So under the purpose based research designs, this explanatory research design comes. And the second type is the how you are going to do the research, not why. Yeah, how you are going to do the research. The method, the qualitative method. Now qualitative method, uh, uh, the elements of the qualitative research design is the in-depth interviews, uh, flexible exploration, focus group discussions, lived experience. So that is the qualitative method. So qualitative design is also a research design, and quantitative design is dealing with statistics, surveys, formulas, measurable variables. That is quantitative. That is how you do the research. That is the method. So there are two types of uh, research designs: purpose based and method based, right? Now you can imagine, I explained a few research designs in the previous slides. Now you can imagine how to determine what is the type of design, and which comes under purpose based category, and which comes under method based category. You can now determine, right? Now this is the method based research design, the explanation of method based research design. Actually, these are qualitative methods, quantitative methods, and mixed methods. Now, I don't have to tell it over and over again because I have explained that in the previous slide. Now, here I want to highlight a very important point in this mixed method. Now, when it comes to mixed method, you do qualitative and quantitative both. You integrate those two, right? You have three types of methods: sequential and concurrent. What is sequential? You do one at a time. You do qualitative method at one time and quantitative method at another time. That is sequential, right? You don't do it together. You do it one by one. That is sequential. And concurrent means you do it together. While you are conducting the qualitative approach, qualitative analysis, you are conducting the quantitative analysis. Both are conducted together. Both are done together. And that is what you mean by sequential and concurrent. These are also research design, right? Types of research design: sequential design, concurrent design. And here you have this transformative design. That is a special type of design which is relevant to our journal. Now, when you study about social justice and marginalized communities, you want to make an impact on the society. You want to make an positive impact on the marginalized communities. You want to uh, enhance the inclusion, financial inclusion, and you have a certain kind of social responsibility in your mind. So the purpose is the social responsibility. So unlike these sequential and concurrent methods, you conduct your research depending on your social responsibility. That's why it is called transformative. Transformative. You transform the society. You change the society. You make a certain impact on the society. So this transformative method is very important for you all, because if you are going to publish a research in this journal, the Journal of Marginalized Communities and Social Justice, you have to follow this transformative method, transformative research design, because you have to come up with solutions. You have to come up with impact. You have to come up with positive impact on the society. You have to find out, you have to smother the society for possible marginalizations, possible social injustice. You have to smother, and then once you find that, you have to dig into that. You have to find in depth, profound concepts or uh, relationships, and find after finding those relationships, you can come up with solutions. You can empower the social society. You can empower the marginalized people. You can eliminate the social justice. So that is what you mean by the transformative method. You are practical. So we are looking at this practicality, this pragmatic kind of approach. You have to find the truth within the society. You can say that this truth is objective and it is out of the society and it doesn't depend on the people's experience. You can just tell that, but what's the use of that if it is not existing within the society? If that truth is not existing in the society, what is the use of that? So you have to be transformative, right? That is the key point I want to highlight in this slide. Okay, so keep that in mind when you prepare your research article. Keep that in mind always, right? What is the impact you are going to make to the society, right? So that is very much needed this time, because this time, there are global tensions, wars are going on, there are so many marginalized communities. So we have to come up with solutions. Otherwise, we fail to uh, uh, keep the processors sustainable. All the supply chains are Now supply chains are interrupted. Some supply chains are interrupted. Now this human psychology is vulnerable to these situations. So we have to find out what are the vulnerabilities, what are the interventions that we have to do, what are the research areas that we have to study to make an impact. So that I have to highlight. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide, 24, number 24. Purpose-based research design. Purpose-based research design, as I explained in the earlier case, exploratory, descriptive, explanatory, and evaluative. Right? Again and again, I use different diagrams for you to explain, because you can see in different perspectives. You can see in through different diagrams, so that you will get a good idea about what I'm telling, right? So, purpose-based research design means that explore. When you explore, when you describe, when you explain, when you evaluate, that is purpose. That is your purposes. Those are your purposes. These are the functions. Explaining is a function. Function derived by your purpose. Describing is a function derived by your purpose. All these functions are derived by your purposes. Now these are purpose-based research design, right? Yeah. This slide is about nature of data strategy. Hmm. Now there are primary perceptions and versus secondary performance analytics. What are primary perceptions? The people-oriented things, mind-oriented things. These are the primary perceptions. People perceive, hey, they have different perceptions. So they live in their own reality. So for you to find that reality, you have to conduct surveys, you have to conduct interviews, and you can find the opinions. That is the primary perception data. And secondary performance analytics is the reports, KPIs, system data, right? Primary data explains what people feel, while secondary analytics explain what actually happens. Now, people feel something, but uh, say what is happening is something, and feeling is another thing. Can be another thing. You can compare those two. Whether feeling tallies with what's happening. So, differentiate these two types of data, right? Primary perception data and secondary performance analytics. You have to differentiate that. Hmm? Yeah. Now I'm going to discuss about the philosophical foundation of a research. You have mainly three types of philosophical foundations: positivist philosophical foundation, and interpretivist foundation, pragmatic synthesis. Positivist means the reality is objective uh, and measurable. Now, reality is objective. It doesn't depend on the human experience. It is the objective reality. It doesn't change because of the human experience. That is the positivist philosophy. Hmm? Focus on hypothesis testing and quantitative research design, such as experiments and surveys. So, truth is discovered through measurement and verification. You numerically measure the truth in the positivist approach. Now, in the interpretive approach, you use philosophies like phenomenology to understand the truth in the human mind. Truth is understood through human interpretation. You use human interpretation to understand the truth. Now, both these philosophies are very important, because sometimes you can see truth in uh, numbers. Sometimes you can see truth in human interpretation. Sometimes numbers don't give you the truth, human interpretation gives you. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the person you are interviewing, and the way you are interviewing, huh? And the tools you are using, the questions you are asking. So it depends on the situation. So you You can't marginalize any philosophical foundation. You can't marginalize interpretive philosophy and positivist philosophy. Depending on your context, you have to choose what is the philosophy you are going to follow. And pragmatic synthesis is my favorite. You know why? Because reality is problem solving and practical, combines objective data and subjective insights, right? Mixed method research designs both quantitative and qualitative. So this is, it doesn't depend on one philosophy. Sometimes you take positivist approach, depending on your situation. You have numerical data also. Sometimes you have at the same time you have qualitative data, I'd say. So you can go into uh, more practical solutions. You can tap into untapped areas, right? You can find practical solutions. That is the beauty of pragmatic synthesis. Pragmatism means if the uh, truth can be used for the betterment of the society, that is called pragmatic. That is called pragmatic. So that's why I like pragmatism. For you to practice pragmatism, you have to learn positivism and interpretivism both. Hmm? Because you are agile. You are agile, so you use these philosophies contextually. Depending on the context, you use the philosophy. So you are agile. So agile people will use pragmatic synthesis. So that's why I like pragmatic synthesis. Okay. Philosophical assumptions about reality and knowledge shape the choice of research design methods and analytical strategies. The only thing is not knowing the definition of these research designs. You can just by heart, or you can just memorize all these definitions of research design. But you have to learn those with the practicalities, right? Practicalities. You have to get hands-on experience. You have to gather insights. You have to talk with people. You have to go to different geographical areas and talk with different people, right? So then only you have hands-on experience. Then you get to know how to apply these philosophies and these research designs in your research journey and your day-to-day life. You know how to shape up your life and your daily activities and your family life, work life, how to achieve work-life balance. Everything you can learn through hands-on experience. You have to have a research eye and agility and the appropriate. You have to use the most appropriate design. Then you become a adaptable researcher, right? Okay. Now, integrated design decision model. Now, this is evolution of research design across research phases. There are different phases in the same research. Now, say first phase is problem understanding. Now, you don't have a proper understanding of the problem, so you have to explore the problem. So you apply exploratory design in that phase, and then you conduct in-depth interviews to identify reasons for low trust in digital banking. So you with in-depth interviews, you find out unclear areas. You shed light on the unclear areas, right? And key factor influencing design change: high uncertainty about problem nature. Now this problem's nature, you are not certain about it, so therefore that's why you employ exploratory design in this phase, right? In the second phase, you describe the trends. Now you have come up with some insights and some understanding of the research problem, so you are describing the research problem. Now you get descriptive statistics. So in that case, you use descriptive design. You use survey customers to measure trust levels, usage frequency, satisfaction. Now everything you can measure up to which level their trust, their trust levels. You can measure their trust levels, usage frequencies, and satisfaction. You can numerically measure. Need for measurable empirical evidence. When you need measurable empirical evidence, you employ descriptive design. And in the third phase, you test hypotheses and causal links. You have whether there is cause and effect using exploratory design, right? Use regression structural equation model to test impact of service quality on customer trust, right? So this is theory validation requirement, right? Theory validation requirement. That is the explanatory design utility, right? Last one is the phase 4 solution assessment. Now you have a solution. You have given a solution in the first, third phase, and you want to evaluate time to time, evaluate effectiveness of interventions. Sometimes with some interventions, you can evaluate using your model, the trust levels of the customers, using put in some interventions. Assess customer response after introducing enhanced mobile security feature. You incorporate a certain security feature, and after that you can evaluate using the same theoretical model. What is the level of trust of the people? And that is managerial decisions and policy relevance. You can make decisions, managerial decisions, using this evaluative design. So these are the utilities of the 4 different designs. I think this is very comprehensive. You can get a overall idea about the today's lecture with this table, and there are another few slides. Okay, I took my time because I wanted to explain everything for your benefit. That's why, yeah. Uh, Sequential multi-phase design. Sequential multi-phase design, exploratory sequential design. You use your qualitative data collection and analysis to build to quantitative data collection and analysis. You get a certain uh, theoretical grounding using your qualitative data. The employee experience, in-depth interviews, focus group discussions. With those things, you get a certain qualitative approach. With this qualitative approach, you define the variables, you get the dimensions, indicators, everything. Based on those indicators, you uh, go for a qualitative data collection and analysis. Then you can interpret the problem very well. Use qualitative results to develop a new instrument or taxonomy. You can develop a new theory or new instrument using uh, qualitative data, and you can use that instrument to get quantitative data, and then you are transiting to a quantitative phase of the research. That is also very interesting, right? Now, final conceptual framework example. This is the final example. You can see some variables. This is a conceptual framework. Personal factors. Now, I mentioned the word dimension and indicators. Now, see, can you see the dimensions of personal factors? Self-efficacy, personality. You can use these dimensions to measure personal factors. You can have some questions, corresponding questions to each of these dimensions. Using those questions, you can use Likert scale questions to measure this, and then that measurement, using that measurement, you can get a value for personal factors, and for these job related factors also you can do the same thing. These are the dimensions which come under job related factors, and these are the dimensions which come under organizational factors. All these things you can measure, and then these 3 variables make an impact on the employee engagement. This is the outcome of these 3 variables, right? These are the independent variable. This is the dependent variable. Now that employee engagement mediates all these 3 personal factors are mediated by employee engagement. These are the outcomes. Organizational citizenship behavior, intention to quit, organizational commitment. Right? These are the outcomes. This is the conceptual framework that you can define. When when conducting the research. A conceptual framework visually explains how key factors are expected to interact and influence outcomes, guiding the selection of appropriate research design methods and analysis strategies. Now, you use different strategies to describe this. Now, descriptive design you can use to describe these personal factors, to measure these personal factors. Each of these variable can be described using descriptive design. And after that, you can define the variables, and then you can check the cause and effect using experimental model. And explanatory model you can use in explanatory design model. You can check the relationships, interplay, and the mutual correlation of these uh, variables, right? That's the idea. Okay, that's the idea. And Now, key takeaways. Research design acts as the scientific blueprint guiding the entire research process, because once you select the research design, that acts as the scientific blueprint, the plan of your research. It guides your total research journey, whole research journey. It guides your whole research journey. So research design is very important. Clear alignment between research, problem, objectives, variables, data strategy, and analysis ensures strong validity. Now, achieve strong validity, you have to align your research problem with objectives, variables, and data strategy and analysis. So, this clear alignment improves your validity. So, that's why research design is very important. Different research purposes, explorations, descriptions, explanation, evaluation. These are the research functions: explorations, description, explanation, and evaluation. Depending on those functions, we can identify some research designs: exploratory design, descriptive design, explanation design, evaluation design. Right? They require different design approaches. Method choice. Depending on the method choice, quantitative, qualitative, mixed, you can determine the depth, generalizability, and interpretation strength. Time horizon and research setting influence feasibility and evidence relevance. Right? Time horizon. Um, because uh, time horizon means sometimes you need to uh, uh, conduct your research longitudinally. You have to choose different points of time to increase the feasibility and validity of your evidence, right? Combining primary perception data with secondary performance analytics strengthens the evidence-based conclusion. That is another takeaway. Philosophical foundations shape how knowledge is generated and interpreted. Integrated and sequential multi-phase designs support comprehensive understanding and practical decision making. Yeah. These are the takeaways of today's session. I hope you have all had a good session today. And if you have any questions, please forward them through the chat platform. Now, time is 8:51. I have taken my time. Sorry for that, but I think you have gained a lot of insights from this lecture. Just give your suggestions and your uh, anticipation for the future sessions, right? And good night, everybody, and have a good day. And I request you all to participate in next the coming sessions as well. Thank you very much for your participation.
Yes, Mr. Madhur Fernando, thank you for such an insightful session. Your ability to bridge the gap between complex research design and its practical application is truly impressive. So, you have given our scholars a clear blueprint to elevate their work for publication. We are incredibly grateful for your time and expertise today. To our participants joining from all over the world, thank you for your time and your engagement. It is your dedication to socially relevant research that makes the JMCSJ lecture series so meaningful. We hope the insights shared today help you in your journey toward impactful, publishable research. Thank you.